Welcome back to Audit Spotlight, the channel where we turn official government oversight reports into clear, factual stories. No commentary, no opinions, just the facts, sourced directly from the Office of Inspector General. In today's episode, we're examining a March 31st, 2025, report by the Office of Inspector General for the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC. The report is titled, Report of Investigation regarding the pre-screen waiver determination process. But before we dive into the findings, let's take a moment to explain what the CPSC is and why its hiring processes matter. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, is an independent agency of the U.S. federal government. It was established in 1972 with the mission of protecting the public from unreasonable risks of injury or death associated with the use of consumer products. The agency oversees thousands of types of consumer products, everything from toys and power tools to household chemicals and electronics. Through regulations, recalls, and education efforts, the CPSC aims to reduce hazards and ensure that products sold in the United States are safe for public use. With an annual budget in the hundreds of millions and a relatively small staff, the CPSC relies on a team of engineers, scientists, investigators, and support personnel to carry out its mission. Hiring the right people is critical, and so is doing it correctly. That brings us to today's topic, the CPSC's pre-screen waiver determination process. In April 2024, the CPSC's Office of Inspector General received a hotline complaint. An individual had received a conditional offer of employment from the CPSC, only to have that offer withdrawn due to an unfavorable pre-screen waiver determination. In simpler terms, the agency decided not to proceed with the hire based on preliminary background information. The applicant questioned whether the process had been fair and transparent, triggering a deeper investigation into the entire pre-screen waiver system used by the agency. The OIG set out to evaluate how the CPSC makes these determinations, whether the process complies with government standards, and whether the agency is documenting its decisions properly. The investigation uncovered three major areas of concern in the CPSC's pre-screen waiver process. First, inaccurate offer letters. Tentative offer letters sent to candidates inaccurately referenced the kind of background investigation required. Specifically, the letters stated that candidates needed to receive a favorable security determination. That phrase is typically used in the context of national security positions, roles that require access to classified information. Most jobs at the CPSC, however, fall under the category of public trust positions. For those, what's required is a suitability determination, which focuses on a candidate's character and conduct, rather than national security concerns. This misleading language could give applicants the wrong impression about both the seriousness and the purpose of the background checks, and it may affect their decisions about applying or accepting offers. Second, lack of clear policies and training. The OIG found that the CPSC lacked written policies and procedures to guide HR staff through the pre-screen waiver determination process. This absence of documentation meant that decisions could be made inconsistently or without clear justification. In addition, HR staff were not provided with adequate training or supervision. In some cases, they relied on outdated materials. Without current guidance and proper oversight, these employees were left to interpret criteria on their own, increasing the risk of mistakes. Third, poor record keeping. Between July 1, 2021 and June 27, 2024, the CPSC issued 18 unfavorable pre-screen waiver determinations, meaning 18 people were denied employment before completing a full background check. Of those 18 cases, only 3 had adequate documentation on file. This lack of record keeping creates serious accountability issues. If applicants challenge decisions, or if oversight bodies want to conduct reviews, there's no paper trail to follow. It also raises concerns about whether applicants were treated fairly and whether decisions were made consistently. To address the issues identified, the OIG made 3 specific recommendations to the CPSC. Correct the tentative offer letters. The OIG recommended revising the letters to accurately reflect the type of background investigation required for each position. Implement tools, training, and supervision. The OIG urged the CPSC to create the necessary infrastructure, training programs, supervision procedures, and internal tools to help HR staff make informed and consistent pre-screen waiver decisions, improve documentation practices. The agency was advised to adopt policies requiring proper documentation of all pre-screen determinations, favorable or not. Agency response. The CPSC agreed with only one of the three recommendations. Specifically, they concurred with the need to revise tentative offer letters. However, they did not agree with the recommendations to improve training, supervision, and documentation. The agency maintained that its current procedures were adequate, despite evidence to the contrary presented in the OIG's findings. The OIG expressed concern that without implementing all three recommendations, the issues identified in the report would likely persist. Why does this matter? At first glance, a hiring process might seem like a minor issue compared to the CPSC's larger mission of protecting consumers. But how an agency brings people on board has a ripple effect on everything it does. If qualified candidates are turned away unfairly, the agency loses out on talent. If decisions are made inconsistently, it could open the agency to legal risk or damage its reputation. And if poor documentation practices continue, there's no way to measure or improve the system. Transparency and fairness in hiring aren't just HR concerns, they're foundational to good governance. To summarize, a complaint led to an OIG investigation into the CPSC's pre-screen waiver process. The investigation found inaccurate communications, a lack of training and policies, and inadequate documentation. The OIG made 3 recommendations. The agency only agreed to 1. The OIG remains concerned that, without changes, the same problems will continue. This has been another edition of Audit Spotlight. As always, our goal is to make government oversight accessible and understandable. Everything in this episode is based solely on public findings from the Office of Inspector General. If you found this report interesting, consider watching our previous episodes, which cover topics like artificial intelligence in federal agencies and oversight gaps in Medicare and Medicaid. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay informed.